What's going on, brother? Can you hear me?
Yeah, man. God bless you, brother. How you feeling, man?
Man, I'm doing good, man. It's Wednesday, man. It's
Always.
we in the middle of the week, right?
The middle of the week, man. Another day, bro.
Another
Another
day. And when
wonderful
somebody
day,
asked me,
man.
he said, "How you going?" I said, "Man, another day in the paradise, man." So we here. It's blessed. It's a blessing to be amongst the living.
Always a blessing to be here. Any day above ground is a good day, bro.
Amen. All right. Well, yeah. Well, with that being said, man, we'd like to welcome everybody that's tuning in. It's another live session. Welcome to the Final Notice podcast. I am your host. My name is JoJo, and I got my brother with me. What's up? What's going on, Aaron?
I'm good, bro. How you feeling, man?
Man, feeling good,
One
man.
thing I going into this, and we hopefully get towards the end, is that whenever you are trying to do something positive, and whenever you're trying to move in the right direction, it's never going to be an easy task. It's always going to be met with opposition. Because, like I said, man, we have an enemy, bro, that has a job to do. But our job is to keep him underneath of it. Keep him underneath of us, bro.
Amen. We're gonna keep on going. Please, if you're tuning in, please share the live. Welcome to the Final Notice podcast. We are streaming live on Facebook, and we are also streaming live on YouTube on Final Notice podcast on YouTube. I think today's conversation is going to be a blessed conversation. This is the part one of today's conversation, and today's conversation is titled in the second here, "Men and Leadership." And I feel like this is a conversation that is not necessarily towards just men alone. I feel like it's a conversation and a topic that will empower anybody that pays attention to the substance within this conversation. So if you're
Hmm.
tuning in live, if you have a man in your life, if you have a brother, you have a dad, you have an uncle, you have a friend that can benefit from this conversation, please invite them to subscribe to the channel and also to follow us on YouTube and also Facebook as well. With that being said, we're gonna get right into it, man. We're giving people more time to come in, so please, if you're coming in, get your popcorn ready. I got my pen and pad ready, Aaron, because I'm gonna be taking notes as well. Because I don't know it all. We're here to learn with each other. So I got my pen and
Absolutely,
pad
bro.
ready. Grab your pen and pad and ready, and let the Lord do what He do best.
That's right.
So with the conversation, man and leadership, right? We're going to start with Psalm 24, verse 1 and 2. Whichever translation you like, King James, New International Version. Open it up real quick because every conversation we have, we wanted to have a substance. We just don't want to get on here and ramble just to be rambling. We want you to get something out of it, as well as we want to get something out of it. So with that being said, you want to read or you want me to go ahead and read it?
Now, I read it, but I also want to give people a little bit of a something to look at, a little perspective, I would say, right?
Mm-hmm.
And I say it from the standpoint of if you actually take the mysticism and the um, this rule thing about the Bible out of it and actually read it from a practical standpoint, it's technically a book that'll give you a perspective of life and an understanding of life, right? I know there's a lot of people that says, "Oh, it's things missing from the Bible," and if you really look at it, the acronyms, what most people come to recognize is that it's the basic instructions. So why are we worrying about what's missing within this if we can't even get the basics together,
Mm.
right? So now it's a matter of let's take what we have and let's see if we can master what we have so that we can understand where we are so that we can get to where we want to get to. You know what I'm saying? And we have to just take that whole mysticism, that hocus pocus, this genie philosophy out of it and just take it for what it is, right? So in Psalms 24, it reads, the earth is the Lord's and the fullness thereof. And this is the King James Version, right? The world and they that dwell therein. Now I want to ask the audience and anybody that want to chime in, they got something to say about that. I really want to know what when you hear that or when you read that, what is your perspective of that? Like, what do you get? What do you hear when you hear that the earth is the Lord's and the fullness thereof, the world and they that dwell therein? So I was before you jump in and give your perspective. I'm hoping we can get some comments. Hope that we can get some feedback because we want to be this as conversational as possible, bro.
Mhm. So yeah, we're going to give you guys a few minutes. Go ahead and read it, 2 verses. Read it and then comment. This is a live interaction. We want to be able to keep everybody engaged. Please write your comments in. If you're watching from YouTube, comment down. We'll get the notification. If you're on Facebook, comment in. Shout out to the people that are online right now. Caleb, what's going on, brother? What's going on? Susan, good evening. How you doing? Let us know where you're checking in, but also let us know what are your thoughts on that. Psalms 24, verse 1 and 2. When you read it, and our sister had posted it, our sister has posted it as well, so you can read it in the comment section as well. What do you get from that? Because there's a lot to take in with those 2 verses alone. Do not be shy. Drop your comment.
There's no wrong answers. We all here
Right.
for perspective, man. It's all about perspective of life. All right, what you want to take a shot at it before we jump in? Let's see
Um.
what does that do for your spirit, bro, or what do you take away from that?
So when I first read it, and when you brought it up, which I thought was a great topic to what we're talking about today, um, the conversation or what I got from it is that everything that is created that we see on this earth is under the authority of the Lord,
Mm-hmm.
right? Everything from the grass to the living creatures, everything belongs to Him.
Mm-hmm.
And everything that's in it, even within the sea, He founded everything. So He has the control and the power over everything as He see fit. And that's what
Mm-hmm.
I got from it.
Okay. So that's most times like people get that. I feel like a lot of people get that generalization, right?
Mm-hmm.
So I had this great teacher, right?
Mm-hmm.
And he taught me how to, I guess one of the greatest things that I got from him was he actually taught me how to understand a little bit of the Bible more, right?
Mm-hmm.
And when you sit back and you understand that there's punctuations, right? And
Mm-hmm.
sometimes we'll read through things like, for we know that all things work for the good of them who love the Lord, so forth and so on, right? And we'll read through that and we'll drop certain nuggets that's inside of it because we are reading through stuff so fast and we're not really like taking in the punctuations, right? So
Mm-hmm.
when you read that, right, and you put the punctuations and the pause in, right, because these are like independent thoughts, right? So he says, the earth is the Lord's and the fullness thereof. Pause. It's one, right?
Mm-hmm.
But then he turned around and he says, the world, right? And they
Mm-hmm.
that dwell within. And it baffled me because why would he say the earth and then the world? Why didn't he say the earth and then the earth? Why didn't he say the world and the world? And to that you would say what?
That's the great mystery mind of God.
Yes, sir. Yes, sir.
That would be my best answer. That would be, I mean, because the
Okay.
you have the earth, right? And then
Right.
you have the world.
Mm-hmm.
The
Mm-hmm.
worldly things are things that I feel like we, the humans, created.
Right.
We created the worldly things that's within the earth. And therefore, he said, God said, I created the earth. The world is something what we perceive it to be for individuality.
Okay.
That's how I would look at it from it.
All right. Let me see if I got the right one. John, if you get a chance, right,
Mhm.
to our lovely producer, John 12 and 31, right? That's what I'm
Mhm.
going to next. Because I'm tired of saying it and then like we don't really show it, but I want to do it so we can show it, right?
Okay.
So when you go to John, right? Because this is one of the misconceptions I feel like that they don't teach us anymore either, right?
Mhm.
Our sister said the earth was created, the earth he created belongs to him and him alone. Yes,
Mhm.
amen. Do not love the world or anything in it.
Perfect.
Okay, I got okay. All
I
right.
get what she's
I
trying
believe
to
the
say.
scriptures, everything is he and created for his purpose. This scripture is everything is his and created for his purpose. Okay, the world is Satan's. Yes, sir. And that's why we went to John Von Harris. That's the reason why we jumped to John 12 and 31. It says, now the judgment of this world. Now is the judgment of this world. Now shall the prince of this world be cast out, and I'll be lifted up upon the earth, and I will draw all men unto me. Hold up. Because he actually called him the prince of this world. I'm just trying to find out, or the ruler of this world. I want to make sure it was in there. Yeah. Well, yeah, it's in there. I mean, anybody want to jump in and throw it out there, help us out? I just want people to see that part of it. Father, I'm sorry, I'm dragging a little bit, but
no, that's fine.
I had it set up. But that's it. It's in there in 12 in that verse, and in that particular scripture when he's predicting his death. When Jesus started predicting his death. See, that's why I switched the translation. And because they got subtitles in there.
And for anybody that's tuning in,
30. The voice was for the benefit, not mine. The time for judging this world has come when Satan, the ruler of this world, so it's in 30. The ruler of this world will be cast out. So I just wanted to get that to the people. Yep, thank you very much. Thank you. The ruler of the world. They call him. He's the ruler of this world. So when you really look at it, right, you have the world of entertainment. You have the World Wide Web. You have the worldwide leader in sports. I think Fox News is like the most watched news in the world. So it's a really great distinction between the earth, which is he created everything and all belongs to him, but even the worlds inside of it, he still have dominion over it. But he just knows that the ruler of this world and the things that's in this world, because you have the world of politics, you have all of these different worlds, and they start butting heads at times. And like you got the entertainment world that start butting heads with the political world and all of these different things. So I feel like this is a great outlier and a great foundation to lay this conversation on, right? Because we have men, right, and we have the men of that. It's really. I don't want to jump too far ahead, but men, we are created, and this is we, and I don't want to offend anybody. It's not a sexist comment or anything like that. It's actually in the word. We are God's divine order. He said the head of every woman is man, and the head of every man is Jesus Christ, and the head of Christ is God. That is God's divine order. And I'm trying to find out when we having this conversation, when have we as men never became enough? Like, when was that not enough? When was us being men not enough? Now we got to give ourselves these superficial titles as kings. What's up, king? What up, king? I hit you up a while ago, said, hey, man, you need to tell everybody, because you from the motherland. You just came back from the motherland, right? So you got the roots, right? I said, Twan, you better tell some of these people out here that everybody wasn't kings, man.
Where wasn't a king?
Everybody wasn't kings.
Everybody's not a king.
Some of us was farmers, bro. Some of us was conquered by other nations, and we became servants. So now that we give ourselves, because we're in this world, and we have to give ourselves fictitious titles, superficial titles, to try to make us more. But a man, a godly man, and a man of standards and a man of principles is enough. That is enough right there. So we don't have to walk around. I'm like, I don't have to be a king. I already know who I am. I can still be the son of the king. Now, don't get me wrong. See, people want to sit back, and even in church, right? They want to sit back and say, they use that title. Like, Jesus never even called himself a king. He said, I'm a shepherd, right? And if you really look at the posture and the positioning of a shepherd is in the back. He leads from the back. Well, all of these people want attention. You know what I'm saying? They got these titles like, I'm alpha male, beta male, this kind of male. No, a man is enough. You know what I'm saying? I don't care if you're alpha, beta, whatever the world wants to label you as in divinity, your position and your place is enough because God created you that way. You know what I'm saying? So we get lost in certain things in our positions and we step out of line, you know, like for instance, and this is something I wanted to address before we really get into it. And I thank y'all for being patient with me real quick. I said, I got some stuff on my chest.
You sure
I
did.
Really need to shoot
and look, you sure did. And for those who are tuning in, this is a live interacting podcast. We want your feedback. We want you to be engaged with this because we're talking about men in leadership. And what we first read was Psalms 24, verse 1 and 2. And then we read John chapter, what was that? John chapter, was it 31?
12 and 30, yeah.
31, 12 and 30. And pretty much we given the foundation as to why this conversation is about and how this conversation is going. Because we're talking about men in leadership and the roles that men have to play. And we'll get into it, what leadership look like.
Right. And we would hope to get into the leadership of our community, leadership really in church. We're going to address the husband aspect of a marriage because I think Antoine asked a beautiful question. And like, just because you make the most money, does that make you the leader of your household? And unfortunately, that's a lot of, you know, like the breadwinner, that's the old school standard because at the time, you know, wasn't a lot of women in the workforce. So the man was like, oh, I make money and this, that, and the other. Not on that, you hear testimonies and women want to call men weak and say, oh, he can't stand a strong, independent woman. And I was like, no, sweetheart. As a man, I'm telling you, that's not what he was upset about. He didn't have inferiority complexes and this, that, and the other because you are an independent woman, baby. That's not what it was about. And we're going to hope to address all of that, you know. But right now, like I said, I just got something on my chest I need to get off, right? One of the biggest pet peeves I have right now is when I see black men, right, on the internet dogging women. That is one of my biggest pet peeves right now because, again, you know, you got, you know, God rest his soul, the brother, Mr. Kevin Samuel, and I'll be allowed to sit here and tell you if I listen to the brother and he helped me in my life. I'm not even going to lie with stuff. There's some insights and some perspectives that he shared that I thought was very critical for like men to hear. But if you ever sit back and really look at his life and go back and look at some of the things that he did, he will tell you straight up that he was in charge of the singles ministry at his church. Kevin Samuel started off his ministry in the church in charge of the singles ministry. And when he said he got into I think he said it was like 2 different churches he did this was in, he started realizing the people in the church is crazy. And that speaks to leadership. Now, this is a man, right, who was in leadership position. But instead of leading, I feel like, and not to dog this man out or talk about his name or anything like this man took his ministry and his talents and went to the world to try to entertain people. And if you really listen to his message, he's still talking about the kingdom. He's really talking about and addressing some things. That's why he said, that's why deep down his passion was for the black community and the family. But the stuff that he did for entertainment and how he carried that, it was unacceptable as a man. Never thought that, because in the Bible says you have to give heed like to the woman as the weaker vessel. And if you are looking at that from the standpoint, if you're supposed to be protecting the women and looking at the women as they are being the weaker vessel, there's no way in the world you should have took that stance. But you did it and you sold out to the world for entertainment purposes, for materialism, for clout, for position. You sold out. The other brother, Mr. Andrew Tate, and any believer that can sit back and say, I share, and his was the hardest to listen to, because there's nowhere in the world I can share anything as a believer and say, I stand with this man or anything. There's a lot of black men that follow these things. There's a lot of black men that listen to them. And these people are calling themselves believers. But Everything that man did was chaotic, and he sowed chaos. And we all know that Satan is the author of confusion. So why in the world am I listening to this guy? And he had no positive message whatsoever. He had nothing to say, I'm going to bring my people together. At least Kevin Samuel had a message where it's like, I'm trying to rebuild the black community. I'm trying to get these people married. Now, they got this whole thing about like, oh, this high value woman and all this other nonsense are worldly concepts and worldly principles that all women ain't subscribing to, bro. You got this one week, one show, they got these guys, and they just dogging women out like, oh, you this and you that, and you want to sell this. Like, first of all, any real man that knows how to talk to a woman knows that there ain't the way you gonna get a message through anyway. And I'm like, even these women are sitting here for a bag, which I had a scripture for. And all these people out here, they say they want to chase the bag. In the book of Proverbs, it says, don't work to be rich. Black men that's in leadership position, men that's out here saying, like, I'm out here chasing the bag. Nah, you ain't even supposed to be working to be rich. That's Proverbs, that's wisdom. Let that sink in your head. But these are the worlds and the concepts that the world created to try to get men out of position and out of their place. And then these people are like, oh, you chasing after women and you chasing after these things. You know what I'm saying? Like, for what? For status, for prestige? Don't store your things into this earth. They're going to pass away. Store up your riches in heaven, bro. So you as a man, I feel like, yo, we forgot where we came from. We forgot our mission. We forgot the things that we supposed to be doing down here. And I honestly believe that this is the reason why the world look the way that it is. Yes, the world try to minimize us and emasculate us. Yes, the world try to minimize our role in families and households and in the community. And we can't subscribe to that as men, as black men. We can't subscribe to that because we came from divinity. We were the first, men was the first thing that was created after our Father's image. He created a lot of things. But then he stopped and put his hands on us and created us. He spoke everything else into existence. But when it came to us, and it came to a man, he put his hands on it. Let us make man in our image. Which I seen the video and said, well, you can't answer this question. Yes, I can answer that question because if the Father is the Father, Son, and the Holy Spirit in the one, yes, why would he talk in a singular purpose? Even if you go read the book of Proverbs, Proverbs says the wisdom was here walking on the earth and it was with him. So yeah, he let us make man in our image. So you got to get your mind out of that, black man. Get your mind out of that state, bro.
So let me ask you something, man. And thank you for everybody tuning in. And Vaughn said, if the message isn't about bringing souls to Jesus, then there is no message, which is absolutely right. And that is why we're having this conversation about men in leadership, because God has given men a charge. And we talk about often people abusing power and title. And when it comes to leadership, bro, we talking about leadership as men in communities, in churches, workplaces, family aspect. We talking about everything that says a man is supposed to be in a leadership role. And how does that look like? So one would ask then, what do leadership look like?
Yeah.
What does leadership look like? That's the first question I think we should ask.
All right, before we get there, I got one last thing, and I just want to put this on also all the men that's out there that's listening, or any man that get a chance to listen to this message. Antoine, you're married. You and your wife, you go out to the mall, to the food court. You get up, you leave her there, and you go get something to eat. Another man comes and sits at the table. If your wife sit there and allow this man to entertain her, does that say more about her or you?
More about her.
I disagree.
Oh yeah.
See, okay.
Drop the knowledge, man. That's what we here for.
See, that's what I'm saying. I'm
here for it.
I'm ready for this.
We here for it.
This is the same story about Adam and Eve. And everybody, you would like to put that blame on Eve, right? Adam got up and did his job. He was working. He did what he was supposed to have done, right? That's what he was created to do. And I often looked at that situation. I'm like, it's kind of interesting that this man get up and leave. And this serpent comes out of nowhere, even though he was a silver tongue, right? Why? That says more about the man to me. Because what kind of man? Well, first of all, you understand a woman that loves you, and anybody that really been around a woman and knows a woman knows that women put up with a lot of stuff, even before they decide I'm out of this, or if they decide to cheat, or if they try to do something else. Women put up with a lot of junk from men, which don't get talked about. And I wish more women would actually say this, but women knows, like, we don't be having money. I mean, to me, I hate to say it like this. At one point in time, I was like, man, these bum dudes out here winning in life, bro. The bums winning. When I was growing up, you had to have your hair done, you know what I'm saying? Had a haircut, had looked like something, smelled like something, looked like you was going somewhere. Then nowadays, you got these dudes, man. They like some of the baddest women out here. They bagging, they ain't got no jobs. They just slinging, you know what I mean? Doing whatever they doing. And I'm like, man, they got some of the baddest chicks out here. Like, that's crazy. Like, so I was like, where the standards at, right? There's another thing that got twisted up in all of this, right? So I looked at it, I was like, that really says more about the man than it does the woman. Why? Because what kind of woman will sit there, especially if this woman loves you and care about you, support you, raising your family, this, that, and the other. What kind of woman will sit there and entertain that? If the man is doing what he's supposed to be doing, if that man is in place, if that man is covering you and protecting you and loving on you, well, technically, this is another misconception that we'll get into, because the Bible never told the woman to love her husband.
Never did.
He told the man to love his wife.
He said, love your wife. He said, love your wives as I, Christ, loved the church.
He told the woman to honor the husband. So everybody got this whole thing messed up, like, oh, my wife don't love me. She don't love me. If she loved me, she do this and she do that. But he never asked her to love you, bro. So get over it. He asked her to honor you. So how can she honor you? Like, what kind of man are you that she can't honor? If you're doing what you're supposed to be doing, and you do, now don't get me wrong, there's some out there. There's some out there that just gonna be rogue and whatever. You can't put that, that all on men. But for the most part, I've never seen a woman that when a man was doing his job, let another man or another person come in and talk to them like that, get close to them and get in their ear and try to distract them. Never. I've never seen that. I've seen women that they on their lunch break and they talking on their husband and stuff on the phone, and they don't even keep other men relationships and let other men get close to them. The reason why I feel that happens because you off your job, bro. A woman would get up, you know what I'm saying? I'm leaving. In this world nowadays is crazy. You ain't got to confront them. But I don't see too many women sitting there confronting them. Think about it. If all of their needs are being met, this man buying them Gucci, this man taking them out, this man doing that and other. If you look at it from a world aspect and what the world said that the women's supposed to have, right? Hey, yo, hold up. This dude taking me on yachts. He taking me on trips. He this, that, and the other. He buying me Fendi. He buying me this, that, and the other. Like, why am I sitting here entertaining this other dude? Especially, they're going to tell you, especially if you broke, right? That's what they tell. I want no broke dude. I'm getting all my needs met, right? I look at that differently, bro. It says a lot about you as a man.
Hey, if you can hear us, I think somebody said no volume. I think they might wanted to say no values. But if you have an issue hearing us, please let us know so that way we can correct our audio. But that's a great segment into what we're talking about in regards to the man in the leadership, because I feel the same thing that you're feeling right now, that man has given up that leadership role for whatever reason it may be. I feel like the role has been reversed, where man has actually forgotten their place within the structure. And we know everything goes with everything is going as in structure, right?
Yes,
and if you're a man, if you know your role in the leadership role, then you know how all these things will play in role for you, right? And I feel like most men has lost their identity. And I think that's the major thing that is affecting the man right now, is that we, or the majority of us, has lost our identity in our relationships, workplaces, because we are looking at what the world says a man's leadership should look like. and we are giving that away to our women, not because the women ain't doing what they're supposed to do. The women are doing everything they're supposed to do and more. It's just that the men have become so relaxed. I feel like men have become so relaxed in what they're supposed to do that, hey, my wife is making so much money, I'm gonna just give me any kind of old job. You get what I'm saying?
Mm-hmm.
And I feel like that's been one of the biggest thing or the biggest struggle for the black man in general, especially the black men, because I can only speak about what I'm used to seeing and what I'm a part of, which is the African American community. We as a community have given up those roles, the parenting roles. I was reading something on a TikTok, and the dude was a former rapper, and I'm mad I didn't get his name. He said, you know, black women have been doing everything they're supposed to be doing. They're the mothers, the fathers, they know the teacher's name, they know the doctor's name, they know the doctor's appointments, they know when they got to go to school, they know when to pick them up. Being a father and bringing that home, that bacon or that financial stability doesn't make you a father or the head of the household. It's a lot of things that come with being the head of the household, and finances is not just the only thing. It's one of the things, but it's not the only thing that makes you a leader in your household, right? And I feel like that's what the question that we need to answer within the community is, as a man, what is leadership look like? What is leadership for you?
Right. All right. So I want to, even when you're talking about that, right? Oh, the scripture I was talking about earlier, if anybody was wondering about that, it's Proverbs chapter 23:4. It says, don't wear yourself out trying to get rich. Be wise enough to know when to quit. In the blink of an eye, wealth disappears, for it will sprout wings and fly away like an eagle. So I wanted to give y'all that. It was Proverbs 23:4-5. So y'all can, you know, stop looking at stuff and thinking y'all need to go start chasing bags and stuff like that. It said, know when to quit. Know when to quit. So when you look at the dichotomy of this, right? And I love God because God said he's never without examples, or he's never without a witness, right? I think one of the greatest examples we have is Fences with Viola Davis and Denzel Washington, right? Most men, if you sit back, let's move out of the rightful place, not the priest of our homes. Many of us, many are not washing their wives. Whoa, in the world, washing them in the world. Yes, yes, sir. I agree.
It's Ephesians chapter 5, verse 25-26. Thank you for sharing that, brother Caleb. Please, if you're coming on, welcome to the Finding Orders podcast. The conversation that we're having today in this moment.
So I'm glad he put that up there because it goes right into what I was talking about, right? So society says that men is supposed to what? Have a job. Society says men are supposed to be successful. And, you know, I'll get into a testimony about that later, but that is subjective. Being successful is very subjective. And I hate when people try to pressure men with that. You know what I'm saying? So we were told we're supposed to work, right? Matter of fact, that's the curse that we were cursed with as a man, to work to the sweat of our eyebrows. We get to this country, get away from slavery. You know, our forefathers and grandfathers worked in steel mills, tore their health up, doing all of these different things. You know, we was working hard. And in that working hard, and you as a man knows this, but they also told us we're not supposed to feel. We're not supposed to have emotions. We're not supposed to cry. You know what I'm saying? All of it is a lie, fellas. All of it is a lie. Just to give y'all a heads up, it's a lie. And any real man knows that. You know? And so now we're supposed to have houses and cars, and we're supposed to be paying bills and taking care of that. But then what happens in the world when you can't do that, Antoine? Like, what is it? You know, when me as a man can no longer provide for or do the things that I was told that I'm supposed to do my whole life. Right? Just like the lady I was telling you about an example. She said, oh, he lost his job and he couldn't take me being the breadwinner. No, sweetie, this man was groomed and he was put in his mind and brainwashed to think that his value came from working. His value as a man is to be a provider. So he don't understand no other position because that's what society and the world, again, put on us. Somehow, like you said, we lost our way. That's why you see a lot of these young men drinking, these young men smoking, these young men are not being fulfilled. They don't have a purpose. They don't feel like they're accomplishing anything. They're finding their value in their penises. Let's keep it real.
Mm-hmm.
So now I need to conquer these women, and I need to do this to make myself feel good, because they are not accomplishing what society and the world is telling them that they are supposed to be doing. I myself, my testimony goes like this. I was a single dad. This is, I want to say 13 years now. 2010. So it's 2023, 13
Yeah, 13
years.
years. Mm-hmm.
I was sitting, and it was funny because I actually watched this movie at work today, bro. Lion King. One of the most profound things I've learned in life is from Lion King, bro. Because I'm sitting there and I'm just like, how is this man that's supposed to be tough, that's supposed to be hard, that's supposed to be providing, supposed to raise this little girl? How am I supposed to raise something soft and nurturing and caring and loving and a receiver if all I am is a giver and I'm hard? I watched that movie one day, and anybody remember when Simba and Nala, right after "Oh, I Can't Wait to Be King," got caught up with the hyenas?
Mm-hmm.
Mufasa came and bailed him out. Mufasa sat his son down and talked to him. Mufasa said, he said, "Dad, I was just trying to be brave like you." And Mufasa turned around, looked at him, and said, "I'm brave when I have to." So all of this tough guy stuff, all of this I'm a pimp stuff, all of this I'm this, that, and the other stuff is a lie, it's a facade. We ain't none of that. We wasn't built, we wasn't born. His image is not a pimp. His image is not that. And in fact, that's not it. He said, I saw when that part hit me, I'm like, oh. So basically, as a man, if you want to break it down from a scientific level, we have the X and Y chromosome. We determine the sex of the baby.
Mm-hmm.
That girl came out of me.
Mm-hmm.
I already have inside of me what I need to take care of this girl,
mm-hmm.
and give it to her. I don't have to be tough. I don't have to be macho. I can be soft. I only have to do that and be in those positions when I have to be. When I have to be the protector, when I have to be a provider, when I have to do that. Like, I'm mixing that up, but when certain times when you just have to be that.
Mm-hmm.
As a man, you just have to be these things in these particular moments and times. So yeah, man, all that's a lie, bro.
And it's crazy that you said that, because we talking about men in leadership, and it's funny you saying that, because that was like one of my biggest struggle, was trying to find out where I fit in at as a man, especially as a young man, because I feel like the young men, they struggle with that self-identity to find out their roles in leadership. And I'm not talking about leadership. We're not talking about leadership from a corporate standpoint. We're talking about men in leadership from life perspective, from the kingdom perspective, right? And I had a self-identity issue where I knew I was different amongst my friends, but I wanted to be like my friends. So I did everything under the sun that wasn't right for me to do just to fit in. Mm-hmm. And with me doing that led me to different places. And we talking about places where facing 6 to 20 years, places facing 3 years. We talking about places where I got to get somebody to get me out of here. We talking about places where I'm facing deportation because I didn't have my citizenship at that time. And then it took one incident for me to realize, like, hold up. And remember I shared this with you. It was a girl in my high school that always used to tell me, like, look, man, you do better than that. Why are you trying to fit in with these people? Not saying that I was better than any of my friends or anybody from my neighborhood or anything like that. It's just that I knew that my belief in who I am wasn't where they are. Again, not shading anybody or disrespecting anybody, but just giving you the real conversation in the sense that I struggle with that leadership role because I have so much presence about myself that we all can't be leaders. The great leaders also have to learn how to follow. But there are certain people that have been handpicked by God to be leaders in their community. And I felt like I was, and I didn't really understand that calling of that leadership because I was so drawn away from what I was supposed to be doing. So I would do the neighborhood fights. I would do the getting in trouble. I would do the trying to, sell drugs to try to be cool. Not because I had to, not because my mom was so poor. My mom was doing the best that she could. Didn't have the best of relationship with my father, but my father was physically there. Emotionally, he wasn't there. It was so much that I was dealing with. But until 2014, that's when that man in leadership role started to make sense, because now instead of me trying to figure things out on my own from the worldly perspective, I started looking at my life from the biblical perspective, and it kind of like put that in place for me. Like, okay, hold on. How do you want God to bless you when you are turning around selling drugs to people? These are real life questions I had to ask myself. How do you want God to bless you and uplift you to become somebody that he has chosen you to be, but you are here credit card scamming? How do you want God to elevate you to the next level and you are here cheating on your son's mother? How do you want God to look at you and pick you to take you to this position that you so rightfully deserve, but you can't humble yourself under him, and because you can't even humble yourself to your own family? So all these things plays that major role because I was lost just like the next man. I didn't know where my position was. I knew I'm supposed to be the head, but in order for you to be the head, you must learn how to be able to be the tail. Because you got to know where the tail is moving to. Because if you don't move right, the tail don't move right. If you are not submissive in your leadership role, how are you going to accept leaders? Great leaders also need advice.
All right, so we ain't gonna run too far.
Okay.
Because I feel like where we at right now and how we framing it is we are really addressing all the things of the myths and the lies, right? That are of man, right? And what they put on us. So right now we're just undressing it. Because in order to really, what he said, old wine can't fit new wineskin. First you gotta pour the old wine out. So right now we pouring the old wine out. You know what I'm saying? That's how I feel right now. We dumping all of this nonsense out, these traditions, which is another thing that we're going to get into, because a lot of this stuff has just been passed down to us from generation to generation. A lot of this stuff was taught to us, and it was just lies. You know what I'm saying? A lot of these things was built, and it came from oppression, which is really an underlying theme of a lot of the things that we have suffered as a people, as a race, as a culture, as a community. Is really the oppression of the nonsense that we've come through. You know what I'm saying? So I was you, like, in those times when I was looking at or trying to find myself first, right? And that's I lived with my mom. All I did have was a job. I really didn't have much of anything. So what I realized, none of those things never made me not a man. None of those things never stopped me being a man. I was living in my mom's house in the basement with my daughter. You know what I'm saying? I didn't have a house. I didn't have a car. I had a little bit of money. All of these things, bruh. What up, Glenn? Love you, bruh. Thanks for tuning in. I hope that you grab something from this, man, in your spirit. So we appreciate you. The thing I love about God, and this is another thing that I would say, right? Because just to address this real quick, we're gonna put a footnote in this because I love Glenn. Glenn is one of them people that makes me stay prayed up. He makes me one of the people that makes me stay on my toes. And he says everything is a lie until you can prove it to be truth, which actual evidence, correct? The Bible says you have to believe in God with your whole heart. You can't try to prove something or know something is true when you walk into a situation already doubting it and not knowing it exists. Not only that, if you don't open up your heart to receive it, you'll never know it. You know,
there you go.
The reason why I believe, and I can't say it's for everybody else, but I'm almost sure most of the people that's watching this, and most people that this is affecting, can say, just like the Bible said, the Bible says, try me. and prove that my word is true. That's what it said. But you can't try something if you already saying that it's not real and it
work. You already have the minds. You already have your answers before you even ask the question. So
right.
why even bother with the question?
And he said what? He said you can't have a double-minded. You gotta believe. You can't. He said you ask and believe in it. You said if not, he's like he's like what? A toss like a wind like in a ship in a sail, a ship without a sail, tossing to and fro. So you gotta believe it, bro. And one thing my brother told me in this situation, and then when I was going through this development, when I was building myself up, I can tell you the story. I was in my house by myself, crying, bro, crying in my house. Lord, I just want to be happy. I don't know what's going on. Why this is happening to me? My brother was not home. And I wasn't crying so hard and so bad to the point where, you know what I'm saying, I'm all loud. No, I'm just in my bed crying like, oh man, I'm hurt. I'm broken. I'm going through this transition in my life at 28 years old. And I don't know what the heck is going on, trying to find direction, right? My brother came in the house and I heard him knocking the key. I get quiet and just laying up in the room, right? My brother didn't stop. Like he came in the house and came directly to my room and knocked on the door. First time I pretended like I was asleep. He knocking again. I'm like, hey. So I throw the sleep before he saw him. Yo, bro, hey man, what's going on? My brother looked at me and said, do the door. Hey, yo, you all right? Yeah, man, sleep. You know. Knocked again. Yo, you all right? Yeah, okay. The third time, I'm like, why he knock on my door 3 times and ask me, am I all right? And this man was not in his house and he not knowing what the heck was going on with me. I said, bro, and I just got up. I don't know, bro. Da. He said, you know what you got to do. This is what he said. He came into my house and told me, you know what you got to do. You got to sell out. That's exactly what he said. And then he walked about his business and he kept moving in the house. I would say a lot of times that this thing has failed is because of lack of real guidance and lack of real truth. I think if you sit back and watch 12 Years a Slave, see this right here to me, it really goes into the leadership part. It goes into the men part because iron sharpen iron and we need our brother. We need our friends. We need our family. We need our loved ones. And this is a prime example of what it really is. Not ostracizing, not criticizing, not putting down, not talking about. Oh, no, I'm just address the issue, right? So this is part of the whole thing we're talking about. What I realized in life, 95% of the things that we learned came from somewhere. And it did not come from him. We walked around and we kept trying to do things and we kept trying to do things and we was doing it and we was doing it. And it was amazing because it was in the book of Matthew, which what I was going to get into when I said I wrote down, it was about traditions. When the Pharisees approached Jesus and Jesus was sitting back there and said, yo, bro, they were talking about why his disciples don't wash their hands and follow the traditions. He's like, man, y'all traditions, he's like, y'all hypocrites. Y'all traditions supersede the law. Y'all don't even follow the law. What are you talking about traditions? All we do is follow traditions. And then you sit back there and think about 12 Years a Slave. That was another thing that gave it to me. Harriet was another one that gave it to me. A lot of times when we first learned this thing, it came from a slave background. It came from runaway slaves that they had to learn from Master. And Master used certain things against us. Right? Master used certain things to go against the grain, right? So at the same time, we had to learn and get enlightened and actually have to develop our own personal relationships so that we can grow. And the reason why things fail and the reason why things happen like that is because we don't never learn. We don't never learn.
And I would say this for anybody that's watching. Again, welcome to the Finding Orders podcast. And that's some great comments and some great questions. And I would say this in the walk of walking in the likeness of Christ. I don't even want to say Christianity. I want to say walking in the likeness of Christ. It is a persistence. So it may fail 1,000 times, but 1,000 times you got to keep going because nobody's perfect. Nobody's perfect.
Man, Drew.
So it's consistent. It's consistent and persistency for you to be better and have that personal relationship. What works for me or what works for Aaron may not work for you. So this is not for everybody because heaven is not even for everybody to go to. That's why there's a heaven and there's a hell. Somebody's supposed to go there and somebody's supposed to go up there. So at the end of the day, I can't tell you if you're right or wrong. I can tell you what works for me. You said, how do you know if it works if you can't prove it? I can prove it. Because I've had that personal encounter. I've had that personal relationship to where everything that I tried in the world failed me. But once I found out my rightful place in my leadership role, not just in job or ministry or anything, once I found out my purpose and my leadership in life, for that matter, everything that I have sought before God, if it was meant for me to have it, I've gotten it. Places where people say a convicted felon can't go, if I get there, I will get in. Why? Not because I know anybody there, not because I've seen somebody there, because I know who I'm going there with. So there's a difference when you say, well, how can you prove it? I can prove it because it worked for me. Can you prove it that it hasn't worked for you? Only reason why you can say that is because you've never really been persistent in what you're looking for. And if you stay persistent, I guarantee you will get to that point where you might say, oh, you know what? Man, this is really happening. Because, Aaron, let me tell you something real quick, right? The one thing that I have noticed that as many non-believers that there is in this world, as much as believers in this world, the first thing that something happened to somebody, the first thing that says, oh my God, what God are you talking about? So you know there is a God, you know you have acknowledged there's a higher being, but just being persistent to find him is the reason why you can't prove it. Because you know you've already acknowledged him there, right? But you can't really move forward because the only time you need him is when you call on to him is when you need him. After you get what you want, you don't need him.
That's it.
So it's about persistence in this walk. And nobody's perfect. We all backslide. We all fall off. We all slide away. You know, it's the persistence. It's the striving. That's what Paul said it better. He said, I no longer worry about the thing that has gone and happened in the past. Rather, I stretch myself looking forward what's ahead of me. So you got to keep consistently going because when we talk about leadership, remember I shared this with you. I said, I seen a brother that that's a Muslim that we were talking about. He said, fathers, how can you be great parents to your sons if you haven't been a child to God? How can you tell your children, I want my son to be great, I want my son to be good, when you, the father, you have not been good to God, who is up in the leadership? How do you want your son to be great to you as a leader of your household and respect you as a man in the household if you haven't even been able to respect the father who created all things underneath the sun?
Right. So
it goes in hand when we talk about finding your rightful place in leadership. You got to understand that it's as Brandon always like to say this. Brandon says, unlearn, relearn for you to evolve.
Right.
So we have to unlearn all the negativity that's been telling us or given to us as what our man leadership look like in a worldly perspective.
Exactly.
And try to figure out what a man's role is in leadership in the heavenly perspective. And I think we have a comment from my sister Khadijah. What's up, Khadijah? The baby will be due here soon. I can't wait to help change shoes, not diapers, but shoes. I change the shoes and put the socks on. What's going on? She says, when try with your flesh, you fell. But when you try with the spirit, there's a different outcome. There you go. And that well said, because that's what we're talking about. You're talking about trying to get the worldly perspective on things compared to the heavenly perspective on things.
Yeah. And
we talk about leadership role and men in leadership and the roles that a man has to fulfill. And as I stated earlier, we've been driven away from our actual roles in our leadership roles. So we have to circle back around and say, okay, Now we know we have a problem. We have acknowledged we have a problem. We have let the world tell us or dictate to us what a man leadership look like.
Mm-hmm.
So we have to go back and try to figure out exactly where our roles are, where we made those mistakes at, because there's a mistake being made somewhere when leadership role.
Yeah. Hey, before we run out of time, right? So one of the things I want to wrap up is that, first of all, men, you dogging your wife out in public, you're not a man
at all.
You know, that's not, I would say not a man, but those are weak characteristics of a man. You know, like when you sit back and you complain what she's doing or what she's not doing, that's not what we're supposed to do. We're supposed to protect and honor and guide them. You know what I'm saying? We're supposed to cover them. We're not supposed to leave them hanging out. You know, what I wanted to do was just, if anybody have in the comments have any other, like, you know, any godly perspective on this, Antoine, you as well. Like these things need to be addressed. I just wanted to run down certain characteristics that we as men are not supposed to do. But then I also want to leave, before we get out of here, I wanted to leave, like, because we are made in his image, I just wanted to run down certain characteristics of God, his principles, his values, his morals, and his vision. You know what I'm saying? Because those are what's more important, you know what I'm saying, to leave on this conversation on a positive note. You know what I'm saying? So that's, if you wanted to, let's do some do's and some don'ts, or some positives or some negatives. One of the things, like I said, I've seen men complain about their wives, bro. But in the book of Galatians, it was talking about you know, making sure your relationship with your wife is on par, so that your prayers can be answered. You know, like, a lot of people think that you sit down, you just praying, and your prayer's not going to be answered based off of your relationship and the activity that's going on with you and your wife. Anybody else got another one?
What I have is I have a lot, but it's hard to pick one that I have.
We running out of time, so we just want to run a couple of them down.
Yeah, I mean, the one thing that I would say is that if you are going to take on that leadership role within your life, first learn to listen.
Yes.
First,
we run out of time to get into this.
Yeah, first learn to listen. If you get in that leadership role, especially within your household, you know, if you know, with your personal life, just learn to listen, because when you learn to listen, you can tell, you can decipher whether it's wisdom or it's foolishness if you just let the person talk. If you listen, a great leader must have one of these. You know, so it's many qualities that a leader have to have, but one of the most key thing is learning how to listen. And I think that's what I would leave up with. That, you know, great leader needs to,
like, a great leader is a great follower.
Yes.
This is one of the examples, because I like giving, like, I forgot what they call it, analogies, so people can understand stuff. If you're a captain of a ship, right, and you tell your crew we're going to paradise. In the middle of that, you tell your crew look up and we heading in a whole nother different direction, right? That's how you cause mutiny. You say, like, listening and communicating. So let's just do that one. Listening and communicating. When you shift gears and you shift course and you're going in a whole different direction, you have to make sure that the people that are following you understand what you're doing. You can't just make unilateral decisions just because you are in charge and think that people just supposed to follow you wherever you go. And I would leave it with that one. I know
you dropped a lot today, man. You dropped a lot. When you call me, you say, "Hey, man, I got something to get off my chest." I had to tell you, this is part one of this conversation on men and leadership. This is part one. We definitely have a follow-up with this one. You know, it's a conversation that's uncomfortable for a lot of men, but it's a conversation that needs to be had in order for us to get to that comfortable spot. And I think being a great man starts with you having the idea of what your leadership should look like before you can actually lead. You got to understand what are the consequences and the benefits that come from. We didn't even dive down into that because there is some consequences and some positive based off your leadership, how you lead it, and we can go from businesses to marriages.
So you would say, without the vision, my people perish. And in order to be a good leader, you have to have a vision. If you don't
So
have no vision, you just. So I heard the statement say, "Yo, if you don't have anybody following you, you're just taking a long walk by yourself, man." And that's what it is. Like you just.
and sometimes you might need to take that long walk, man.
Sometimes you're gonna have to.
You gotta take that long walk, man, because what you gotta go on. You
walk.
got look those long walks, Aaron. Let me tell you something. Those long walks are walks that God prepared you for you to be able to have somebody to follow you.
Yeah. But I'm just saying. But
some of those walks, man.
There's a lot of these people. I was reading. My man said they trying to create these contents and doing this stuff, and they ain't had nothing to talk about. And that was something that I had the conversation about with a dear friend of mine that I cherish so much. I was telling her. I said, she said her ministry or what she was doing was to give a voice to the voiceless. And I asked her, and I think she got offended. And to this day, I don't really know, but I hope she forgave me. I said, but what's the use of you giving a voice to somebody and they don't have nothing to say? Yeah, that's why I said you gotta just be careful, man. You just can't give this to everybody, and everybody really don't deserve it because it's supposed to be. Thanks, Drew. I appreciate you, my brother. I love you, man. Long time. I love you and your family. I love what y'all stand for. Every time I see y'all remind me of Black excellence, man. And I love looking at you and your family, your brothers. We go back to high school and what y'all doing, man. I appreciate it.
And I think he had a comment too, as far as like positive or negative comment. And he said leadership is influence. The way you can evaluate or determine a man's level of leadership is by the influence he has on others and the impact he has on an organization, to include your household.
Amen. And honestly, Drew, we didn't get a chance to do, because like I said, we ran over till these are a lot of the things that we have on our notes. There's a lot of things that we want to address, and I appreciate you for putting it out there and giving us that positive spin and that positive taste before we get up out of here. And I appreciate that a lot, man.
Well, great conversation. Like I said, it's part one. We definitely have part two coming up. We're definitely going to talk about what leadership look like. I think we kind of like dived into a little bit where we're going to figure out exactly some of the things that comes along with leadership.
Run the outline down for him, Twan.
Huh?
Run the outline for him down.
So yeah, we want to have, we talked about what is leadership. We want to talk about what leadership actually looks like, right? And then we're going to talk about why leadership is so important. And then we're also going to talk about what is your role as a leader. Because just because they say you're the leadership, you leader, we supposed to follow you. You have some roles that you have to play too, as far as in the leadership role. So we're also going to dive down into what your role is like in the leadership role. So with that being said, I know we over about maybe like 3-4 minutes. Last week was about 10. We doing better. We went over by 4 minutes this time. Again, thank you guys for tuning in. This is the Final Notice podcast. But before we go, we got to do this, Aaron. What is your final notice for this week?
Wow. My final notice this week is there is a blessing in the persistence, in the press. When it seems like one door is closed, keep pressing. When everything seems like it's not working out in your favor, keep pushing. When one person says no, or somebody else might say yes, and there's a testimony behind that. But that'll be my final notice. Amen. It's not over until it's over.
And my final notice would be, man, I think I'm gonna stick with what I said last week. No matter what you're going through in life, no matter what the obstacle may look like, if you are broken, if you are hurt, it's only for today. Tomorrow is another day for God to do something great. So keep that faith in God to say, no matter what the situation look like today, tomorrow by this time I will have a smile on my face. Again, thank you so much for tuning into the Final Notice podcast. It has been great conversation. Definitely have to have a part 2 to this. Tune in next week for another episode, live interaction, 9 o'clock Wednesday. Man, with that being said, man, y'all stay blessed and have a positive week.
Love you guys. Thank you.